Hey everybody, we are really delighted to do the Purpose People podcast with Ricki Takori. I was going to call you Ricki T, but hey, it might be easier.
It's a lot easier.
From Beman Candles, and you've got an amazing story behind why you started the business and how you're growing it. I know you got some recent recognition as well, like a finalist in a particular award ceremony.
Well spotted,
cool.
yeah.
But yeah, do you want to just share a little bit about where you're from, what you do, and then we just go deeper into the reason why you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah. So where I'm from, born in Bristol. Originally, a bit of a mix. My mother is from the Philippines, and my dad's from Mauritius.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, there's all sorts going on there.
And you live in rainy Bristol.
I actually live in Newport.
Oh, you live in Newport now? Oh, even worse.
Yeah, so it's
of the weather.
all over the place. Yeah. So, and in terms of what I do, traditionally, I suppose people would answer this in terms of what job role they do. So I try and steer away from that.
No, good.
So in terms of what I do, it's probably three main priorities in my life. So I'm a husband to an amazing wife, Carly, and I have a 3-year-old son as well. So family man. And then the second one, I'm actually still employed, full-time employment as a investment accountant for a pensions provider. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said then as well, Beman Candles is a startup that I do on the side. And that's to do with candles and men's mental health. So supporting men's mental health through wellness candles.
So what I like about yourself, Ricki, and it's probably why we connected, is you watched one of our podcasts, if I remember rightly, and you gave a really big shout out. Do you want to just tell us that story quickly? Because for me, it's been one of the highlights of the journey so far. So do you want to just share?
Which shout out was that? Is that the one with
your wife? And
yes,
yeah, go on.
So I can't remember her name. That was, you had a fitness instructor, Frankie. Yeah, and yeah, it definitely took me to a place where I remember when my wife was pregnant, and as men, it's quite normal, and I did this, went into a protect and provide mode. And what that meant for me was I was overworking and really trying to find a way to increase my salary or increase the income into the household.
Yeah.
And that's where I sort of confused things, thinking, well, that isn't really protect and provide. I know this now. It's not really protect and provide.
Yeah.
Being there in the first place is protecting and providing. And a lot of the things that Frankie raised in terms of how she was feeling, how soon-to-be mothers were feeling.
Yeah,
I could see a lot of that in Carly, my wife at the time,
right.
But only looking back. Yeah. And after seeing that podcast, I did have a conversation with my wife around that. And not so much as an apology, but a real deep conversation as to, I can see it now.
Yeah.
And I should have been there more, and I'll act on that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Her podcast in particular, just talking about the fact of what women go through and that kind of stuff, and creating that empathy piece. But one of the reasons why you're here is to talk about guys and what they go through and the stuff that they suffer. And maybe women are a little bit more forthcoming about what they are, whereas, guys, the normal response is, how you doing? All right. It's normally the response that comes back. And this whole Beman Candles journey is what we're going to really focus on today. So do you want to just share a little bit about where the idea come from? As a man doing candles, do you think, how does that work? You know?
So that is the first sort of reaction I get from some people. But right from the beginning, I'll start right at the beginning.
Yeah.
So when I was 18, I started to develop patchy bald spots on my head. Mm-hmm. And I went to the GP, who diagnosed me with alopecia caused by depression.
Okay.
So first thing they did was offer me antidepressants. And at the time I had close friends and family on antidepressants. And for me, it just didn't feel like the right answer for me. And whether that being because I was basing my thoughts on what I could see from my friends and family. So I decided to try something different. What I'd do is turn off the lights. I'd go in my room and light a candle. And I'd just sit there thinking about any problems that I had at the time. Mm-hmm. Eventually, I'd end up coming up with solutions to those problems. And then blow out the candle and get to work on the solution.
Okay.
And it really worked. And throughout most of my 20s, so 18 through most of my 20s, I was doing that. And then fast forward life a little bit, met who now is my wife, met
Carly,
her.
yeah.
Life happened, you go into autopilot mode, really happy. You start to stop maintaining certain practices because you think you've made it, like if you think fitness, me personally anyway, you hit your fitness goals and then you start to dial it back rather than maintain it.
Yeah.
And that was exactly what I was doing. So I stopped using the candles for self-reflection.
Right.
And I just went into autopilot. I was overworking. Life happened, getting married, buying a house, having a baby. And I started to burn out.
Okay.
And then that is where the honest truth caught up with me. I was never at home, especially when my son was around 1.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my wife started talking about divorce.
Wow. Okay.
And it was a painful time. But that is actually the birth of where the candles happened as well. So to go into that into more detail, I remember sitting on the sofa with my wife, and at the time we weren't close because of this talk about divorce. It's Christmas time, Christmas 2021, and we were watching a Christmas movie, and this story had a dad and a son, and the dad wanted the son to follow in his footsteps, and the son wanted to start a men's candle company.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and I chuckled at it.
What was that? What was the film?
I'm trying to. It's a Netflix film.
Okay.
Maybe
It's a Christmas film, right?
it's a Christmas film.
I can
and
ask my mum. She's watched every Christmas
so
thing on any streaming
It's
platform
a
ever.
It's a Chinese kid and
All right,
a Chinese
I'll ask
family.
her,
Yeah, I can't remember it now, but we'll try and find it after this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I chuckled at it, and then that night I couldn't sleep because I remembered everything I used to do in my early 20s about using candles for self-reflection.
Yeah.
And that was the birth of it. So thinking, right, so I use them for self-reflection, but how do I get other people to do that? And that was where the idea of using QR code sort of candles, creating QR code candles. So I'd use QR codes, which people can scan.
Yeah.
And then that will take them to topic-based videos of their choice.
Okay.
Whether it be purpose, gratitude, self-worth.
Yeah.
And then after watching those topic-based videos, they have worksheets to do and to work on.
Okay.
So it's sort of changing the idea of a traditional wellness candle, which is based on scent,
Yeah.
and putting a modern spin on that and making it a bit more proactive in a way, with the video, the worksheet. There's a lot of longevity behind it.
Which kind of gives the guys the outlet, like they're doing something as well, because I think that's a guy always feels like he's got to be doing something.
And maybe that was the mentality
I
had at the time, because I agree, and with these traditional wellness candles, I don't disagree that they don't work, because they do.
Yeah.
I enjoy a nice smelling candle as well. But I think you can do more than that. We can do more than that, and a lot of men like to take action, and that's how they can do it.
So as a result of that, obviously you watched this film and that obviously spoke to you and reminded you, but obviously your marriage is now in a happier place.
Yeah.
So how did you go to turn that around in the midst of starting a side hustle that's grown into something that's getting nationally recognised?
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. So I actually promised her, because I had other businesses in the past while I was working full time, and I promised her I wouldn't start another business, and then I went and started this candle business.
Right.
But in terms of how we got there, I suppose. Sorry, what was the question again?
Yeah. So basically, how did you go from on the verge of divorce, coming up with this candle situation, and then make a decision or make some decisions that actually became a healthier and a happier place?
So at the time I was researching the candle business and the market and getting an idea of that. And then I started using candles for self-reflection again, like I did back in the day. And it gave me back a lot of self-control and self-control over my own emotions.
Yeah.
So every time we would have a disagreement, we were able to talk about it properly.
Yeah.
Rather than it turn into an argument where we wouldn't talk for a day or a week or something like that.
Yeah.
And because we were being more open with each other and having a good conversation, that I feel brought us back together. We were in a place where
Communication, right?
it was completely communication.
Yeah.
And being able to have that self-control again gave us that ability to have that communication without it turning into something else.
What I loved about what you said when you introduced yourself is you know, to move away from what you do is who you are. And, you know, you're very clear about your roles and responsibilities. So, you know, being a husband, being a father and being a son as well, which I felt was really good. But there's a lot been said about essentially a role of a man. And what do you think a role of a man is in society? What do you think or what should they be? You know, what is their role? Because there's some guys who are saying it's about, you know, championing the cause and, you know, with a flag and taking everyone out. There are some people saying it's just a winning business at the expense of everything else. What do you say? What did you say being a man is?
That's a good question, that. So I see masculinity or being a man as ultimately just being yourself. And there's no label to that. And the whole message of Beman Candles is to speak up. And that is completely it. So in terms of the whole role of a man, I just think it is just being able to live with transparency, say what's on your mind, but with empathy.
Yeah.
And just be yourself.
Yeah. Well, giving yourself permission to be yourself.
Completely. Yeah.
You know, and be open and be honest, because ultimately it's fake it till you make it culture.
Yeah. And I can speak from experience where years ago there would be an element of me which would always want to people please at the expense of my own happiness sometimes.
Yeah.
You know? And to bring up what you said about when you asked what do I do, and I split my role into three, I do often think, I remember when I used to answer that with my main job role. Yeah. There's an element of sort of self-worth I used to attach to that.
Yeah, of course.
And whether it be sort of salary-based or status-based, you know.
Yeah.
And I try and stay away from that now, because I realise my self-worth isn't linked to that. So it isn't linked to these external things. It's more internal.
Yeah. So because I was going to run a marketing agency based in London, and I quit the job, and that sense of loss of identity, because there's no salary anymore, and I haven't got the art director's role that was going to run this company, and that was I don't think most men are prepared for that until they go through it. You know, it's like you're clutching at straw. You're like, well, who am I? You know, you're like, everything's so tied up into our job. Yeah. We forget everything else. And I was like newly married as well. And, you know, being a husband was like the last thing on my mind. It's like my identity in the job was gone. And not many men are brave enough to come up to that conversation and go, I am more than my job, and celebrate that, because we've been dictated to what success looks like for many, many years. Completely.
And I don't blame them, because if you think about it, we spend more hours in a day doing our job than we probably spend time with our family, you know?
Yeah.
We probably spend time with our family just in the evenings. So I don't blame men for thinking that.
Yeah.
But it definitely doesn't mean it has to be the priority and what's on your mind. It's finding that balance, isn't it?
Yeah. So you call the candles Beman. So Beman Candles. By taking that sense of self-reflection and taking that time to deal with things and problems, what does Beman mean in essence as a company? What would you frame that as?
Okay, so I suppose there's two things.
Yeah.
So Beman, it's for all the times that people have said to me and probably to other men, man up, grow some balls. All this sort of, you know,
masculine
talk. Yeah, all this alpha male talk. It's that. And it also, I use it as a guideline to remember certain priorities in my life. So it actually does stand something for me. Balanced in the way I live my life.
Yeah.
Empathetic to people in need.
Yeah.
Meaningful in everything I do.
Yeah.
Alive in the way I live my life, and non-judgmental towards others.
Okay. Yeah. And so obviously you've spent a lot of time to get to that place, and people getting your candle for the first time are miles away from it, right? Just talk us through the process of getting the candle for the first time. And, you know, I don't think men stop long enough to even self-reflect, you know, in a modern world where it's like, if we're downing tools for a few seconds. We got to find something else to do. But yeah, just talk us through that journey of getting the candle and then what almost fall into that place of now putting that as a discipline in your life, self-reflection.
Yeah, definitely. It's not easy.
Yeah,
definitely. I'm similar.
finding the time, right?
It is
Is
finding
it a
the
morning
time.
thing or an evening thing?
I think it's going to be different for everyone there.
Yeah,
And it's not so much finding the time; it's making the time. Realizing that by working on yourself, it gives you the energy to work on others.
yeah,
Otherwise, if you work on others first, it does drain you over time.
yeah,
So, yeah, I think it's ultimately that. It's in terms of for men trying to sort of get into the product and use the product, it's using it for leisure, but you can, like I promote, you can light it and watch the video. So the video that you can scan and look at is actually quite short.
okay,
It's about 10 to 15 minutes, and that's on purpose because the worksheet which comes after it, it's a longer process.
yeah,
And it's a working process. It's an ongoing thing. And it's about taking time out of your day every now and then to work on that until it becomes routine.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think self-reflection is something that we don't do enough. And, I think there's that thing of, interesting you're talking about candle there, but, like a guy staring into a fire. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's something about just staring into the fire and just like trying to figure stuff out, it's a welcome distraction. And I think for me, it's like guys don't seem to have that time to self-reflect because they feel that it's that, that's it's not masculine enough to do that sort of stuff. When in fact, guys being in touch with who they are, their feelings, their worries, that and being able to talk about it are all really important things, but not enough people are talking about it.
Yeah.
And
do you know, I think by self-reflecting as well,
yeah,
you find more of your own identity.
Yeah.
Because in the world today as well, the amount of social media, the amount of content's out there, it's quite common, especially for the generations which are younger than us, to compare.
Yeah.
And when you strip all of that away and you can just look into a flame, I always say self-reflection creates self-awareness.
Yeah.
And that's what you get. You're not looking at your phone at the same time. You can really.
And that's the thing, right? It's not. Yeah, it's removing yourself from the distractions, because I think guys can be you can be distracted by sports, for example. It's like whenever the conversation dries up, guys just start talking about football, and it's like, or rugby, or whatever the sport is, and we are who we are, but talking about marriage, talking about kids, talking about education, talking about job roles, talking about all those other things, for me are, we don't do enough of. So as much as you've got the candle, you obviously must know some people that you've been able to help over the years. Is that fair?
Yeah, in terms of helping me or me helping them?
Both,
yeah, okay. So I've always, not out of choice, it just always seems to be, but I've always been the sort of go-to agony uncle, do you want to call it that?
Yeah.
I always have been. And I don't know if it was because I just listen, rather than judge, I just listen. And yeah, that has been the case. And likewise, I've needed help in the past as well, especially during that sort of dark time, Christmas 2021.
Yeah.
I had support from a sort of coaching network as well.
Right, yeah.
And yeah, essentially, I think everyone needs a bit of help.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing, right? Guys actually say, hang up, hands up, I need some help to get through this particular situation.
Yeah.
But do you think the stuff that you went through when you were younger, and obviously coming to that realization that all wasn't well in your camp, so to speak, do you think there were lessons between the two things? I mean, obviously you brought the candle stuff back, but what other lessons did you learn when you're in your dark place that you thought, okay, and you could put into practice in 2021?
Yeah. I suppose for me, it's all to do with that self-reflection and control. So taking things a little bit slower and just mapping out what is going on. I know we were talking before the camera started recording about pain as well. So every time there's a pain moment in your life, that seems to be the moment where you can go either way, isn't it? You can see it as an issue, or you can see it as fuel to take the next step and bring the new chapter in your life. And yeah, that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think that's it. You come to that crisis moment in life where you have to make some decisions, and you realize that where you find yourself right now, you can't stay that way. Something has to change. And obviously it starts with ourselves to make those changes and be brave enough to say, well, it's on us to make those difficult changes and difficult things. And I think where you were is that you talked about the condition that you were diagnosed with and the dark places it took you to. But at some point you had to come to a realization or a decision that enough was enough. Is that a fair thing?
Yeah, definitely. I've always tried to take it day by day as well, though. So yes, I suppose the decision to decide enough is enough is probably that time where I decided on the solution, but then it's working at it daily.
Yeah.
So yes, there is an enough is enough moment, but then you work on that solution each day.
It's a process.
It's a process. Yeah. It's definitely an ongoing thing.
Yeah. So would you say now that you're in a better place than you've ever been?
Yeah, I feel that. Do you know what I think it's all down to? Gratitude.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's something I do in the morning. I call it priming. So it's a series of things, but the first thing I do is I ask myself what I'm grateful for. Sometimes I write down family. Today I wrote down the podcast. Cool. Coming on here and talking about this. I'm grateful for the opportunity to do this.
Yeah,
and that I think makes me feel happy on a daily basis, having that sort of like the idea of this is my gratitude, this is what I'm grateful for today. And I also think about what is my actual purpose for today as well. Yeah. Sometimes we see purpose as this sort of long thing that we need to either aim for or work on, but if we can really break it down as a purpose daily, I find that is a lot more achievable when you take
smaller steps.
Small steps.
Yeah, exactly. I think purpose can be this, you see this great big mountain, you've got to go climb and scale it. For some people, that absolutely excites them. That's where I'm going. That's where we're going to go. And how I get there, I'm not sure, but we're going to go for it. For other people, they're paralyzed. It's like, oh my gosh, have I got to climb up a mountain? I'm scared of heights. It's going to be cold up there. And once I get up there, how do I get down? And it's recognizing we're all on a journey, and to have the right type of people in your life to be able to scale that mountain, both getting up it and maybe coming down it as well. Definitely. And so I think the key thing for me with purpose is that you can discover what your purpose is, but you need to have the right people around you to be able to fulfill it. And I think what you've realized is you've put some pillars back into place that guard the time you have with your wife, the time you have with your children, as opposed to all the other things that you're doing and all the other roles that are stealing your time, maybe in an essence that are less important for where you are. And hence you've come up with this brand and this candle range, which is, a different way of looking at life. But I think the biggest thing for me is to get men to stop. Just stop. Just pause. In fact, it's more than that. Rather than just press pause, it's actually stop. Yeah. It's actually eject the tape. Put the tape down and just stop and just think about where you are right now.
Definitely.
And I think that, and I don't think guys build enough time in their life to be able to do that. Humans, which is one of my companies, we come up with this thing called the game plan. And you can download it at humans.co.uk. It's the first thing that comes up, a little pop-up box. And most people do it at the end of the year. And the idea is to self-reflect on the year that you had previously and then say goodbye to it.
Okay.
So you close, it's almost like you close that chapter. It's not the end of the story, it's just the end of that chapter.
It's the new lessons you take on to the next chapter.
100%.
That's the way I see it, yeah.
But if we don't do that, we often then just fall into everything blurring. And I think it's a really good and important discipline to do. But then it's almost like now embrace the year with fresh expectations.
Yeah.
And to begin to start again. So, but the only way you can do that is you have to stop.
Yeah, completely.
You have to either print it out and with a pen and paper and go somewhere quiet to do it.
Definitely.
Because like, for instance, I couldn't do it here. I'll have to leave the house because there's so much going on. and we're quiet now, but there's too much going on. So I need to go somewhere to be quiet to be able to do it. And I think that's what guys need.
So interestingly, I do that. So I walk up a mountain with a notebook, pen and
do you?
Pen and a
What's
notebook,
the mountain?
yeah.
Where's the mountain?
Around Breckens. So around there really. So I'll take a day off work. I'll make sure it's during the week rather than the weekend, just so it's quite quiet.
Yeah.
And then I'll just sit up there and write the self-reflect, but then write the next goals as well, or how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And I think having that moment to myself, and more men should do it, that is the most important thing. And that's what those candles are about as well. It's just taking those moments to just stop, like you said, and just really assess if what you're doing is the right thing, and can you do something different.
What's the most profound things that have come out of this stopping and unplugging journey?
I can tell you some of the things that customers have said. So essentially, I use the candles in a different way to a traditional candle, lighting it and just using it as for scent. It's been nice to hear that the customers have purchased the candle and have really used it to self-reflect and to sit down, and people have told me they've bought journals because of it. They use the candles daily and just sit there in the morning to think about what they want in their day and what they want to achieve, which usually doesn't happen. If you think normally we just have our to-do list and we just get our head down and do it. But actually sitting down and thinking, like, what are my real priorities today?
Yeah.
Shall I do them first? That's just so powerful. And it's something I do. And I love the fact that other people are doing that without me actually having to tell them.
Yeah.
So I see these candles as well as not me telling people what to do, but giving them a toolbox, and then they can pick the right tool out for them.
Yeah. So for me, it's that kind of being prepared to take the day on rather than being in reactive mode to the day that we hit. Because stuff can happen and then you just respond to that rather than live out what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
I always say in terms of purpose, I say, well, you need to have that heart conviction to overcome the circumstances that are thrown your way. So circumstances might come and distract you of what you're trying to do. But if you're very clear what the priorities are of that particular day, then you've got a good chance of coming to the end of the day going, that was a good day.
Definitely.
And I think often I find that if you don't have that time to reflect, that time to prepare yourself mentally and from a heart position, that you end up in a day where you're just almost feeling like you're behind, you're playing catch up.
And then at the end of the day, you don't feel fully fulfilled then, do you?
No.
So I'll share one thing I do actually. So every morning during that priming phase, I ask myself what my lead domino is.
Okay.
And to me, a lead domino is the one thing that you need to get done today, which will have a knock-on effect to everything else that's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month. And always working and making sure you do your lead domino each day really just helps you give a massive sense. You get a massive sense of achievement at the end of the day. Doesn't matter what else has happened, what other issues have happened.
Yeah.
For me, completing my lead domino each day, I just feel like I've done enough.
Yeah. Does it got a number, that domino? Is it 260?
No. So in my head, I've just got. Yeah. So I haven't. I've never thought about
think
the
of it as a number. Get a number on it as well.
So I just think of it as the domino at the front. So
but it's a domino effect. And conversely, you've got to work the other way. That if you don't do it, then it has a knock-on effect negatively as well.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you make that one thing that you want to get done during the day that does affect other things, because if you don't do it, then day two you've got two dominoes.
It rolls over.
Yeah,
definitely that.
Yeah.
And it's about keeping it quite simple, just having one, but it's an important one.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously there's been a lot said about toxic masculinity and things like this in society. What would you, an alpha male, or then it's beta male, and all that sort of stuff. What would you say, like maybe the top 5 things that really you see as a man now that you're responsible for? What do you think they are? I mean, mental health could be one of them. Taking good care of yourself, for example.
I think self-care is really important, actually.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, self-care gives you the energy to then put into helping others.
Yeah.
So definitely self-care is up there. I will say speaking up, because there's an interesting thing with speaking up as well. So something I never used to do, and I do often now. But what I found with my close friend network is when I spoke up about my issues, whether it be marriage, financial, suicide is the worst one, they had similar issues. And the funny thing is, we were around each other we've been around each other for years, and we've never spoken about these issues, yet we've all got the same issues.
Yeah.
So definitely speaking up's there as well. And then it is just being comfortable being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like the stereotypical genders or what an alpha male should be. Strong, silent, should have a six pack, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It really isn't about that.
No, it's not. It's that they're external things masking what we really are, and I think it's being able to be the other way around. And I think the big key for me with the whole alpha male thing versus beta or whatever you call it, the reality is a man should know empathy and learn how to be empathetic. I think that is a really cool superpower that's not often used. It's like, well, put yourself in their shoes, see where they're coming from. Because you talk about suicide. Suicide's not a happy subject to talk about, right? But people might need to talk about, I'm actually thinking this stuff and I don't know who to talk to. And then, I was shocked that this person ended their life because they didn't have that place or that space to talk to.
I mean, when I had suicidal thoughts, I remember mostly the feeling of feeling alone.
Yeah.
So I wasn't speaking out. I wasn't talking to many people at the time. And that sense of feeling alone, just lying in bed doing nothing when I should be working. Mm-hmm. The moment when I did speak up, everyone around me had similar thoughts in the past, or someone going through it at the time. And it was quite a breath of fresh air to know I could easily talk to people about it and not be judged for it, because actually it's quite common.
Yeah, yeah. So beyond speaking up, what else? What are the other ones you can think of?
It is, isn't it? So in terms of is that strong and silent thing, isn't it? It ultimately is that.
Yeah.
It's how the alpha males think being strong and silent is showing strength, is a weakness to show your vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And I think vulnerability is really important.
That's a big one.
Yeah. And I find with vulnerability, after it comes a massive amount of purpose and strength.
Yeah.
You find and you understand reasons for why you do certain things, or why even certain things that happened in your past life, you see it with new eyes in a way, and you can use that as fuel. So I think vulnerability is actually really high up there as well.
Yeah. So we got one more now. one more. What else would you in terms of a man, in terms of what could aid them or being that role model or whatever, what else would you say makes a good man? Because I think you talk about great men or good men. I just think a good man's a good place to start.
So honesty and transparency just came to me then.
Yeah.
And that's something I try and do with this brand and with myself now is transparency. If linking the two together, you can say something and have an opinion on something, but have empathy when you say it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I would definitely put transparency in there and just being honest with yourself and others. Yeah, definitely.
No, excellent. I mean, for me, it's about as guys being able to just be able to talk to other guys and be not just hanging out and operating on a level like a shallow level, it's being able to go deep. And I think the biggest shift I've seen is that there are a lot more men willing to talk up if they're in the right place and environment. And I think trust is a big one. Guys don't trust guys, and it's being around the right people. I've been in football changing rooms where, there's talk about suicide. There's people in that changing room that were considering it and we didn't know.
Yeah.
We're all talking about the game, but we're not really talking about things that matter. I mean, we had one guy in one team where he was sectioned, and it was just out the blue. But then when you think back, it's like there are all kinds of triggers there. And you're like, oh my gosh, and we had to go and see him and try and get him out and, help him and stuff. But the point of it is that people need the space to be able to talk up and talk out.
Definitely. I think as well, thinking about it now is, with guys, you go out a lot and you're always in big groups.
Yeah.
And that isn't the best time to speak about these deep sort of things, and have those conversations. So it is having the time to yourself or any close friends in your network on a one-to-one basis, having that conversation with them there. Because I thinking about it now, I when I go out, it's often in a group, and you can't have those conversations when you're in a big group.
I often found that certainly in my younger days, the deeper conversation I had was on the way back home.
Yeah, when you're sharing a car with someone.
So like you're walking back from the club, you're walking back from the pub, you're walking
Definitely.
back from somewhere, and it's only like two of you or maybe three of you is where the deeper conversations happen. I remember I used to work in a pub, and we used to finish our shifts, and we used to come, and then there was a lamppost just around the corner from where we lived. And it didn't matter whether it was snowing, hailing, rain. Every time we got to that lamppost, we stopped, and me and my mate, we talked for like 30, 40 minutes about everything and anything. And I reflect back now, talking about reflection, I reflect back now, and we had some profound conversations about life and what we were going to do and that kind of stuff underneath that lamppost. If that lamppost had a recording device, and there's some interesting conversations that we had, but it was that one-on-one or one to two. It was quite a interesting time.
I guess it's when life gets a little bit less loud, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you can have those deeper conversations.
Yeah, because you're automatically changing down the gears, aren't you? You're automatically going, well, we've had the fun night. We're almost concluding it. Let's talk about real life. What does Monday look like?
So thinking about it, for me, it was the car journeys with my friends, and usually it would just be two of us in the car after wherever we've just been, and we've got this 2-hour drive back or something. That's when that's when I'd have those conversations. That's definitely where it began. Now we can openly have these sort of conversations anytime. But you are right. Yeah, it's those moments where you're just sat alone and it's just a little bit quieter, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think there's that element of you being in touch with yourself, but also the element of being alone with a smaller group of people where you can actually, because I don't think you can be an open book to everybody, completely. Yeah. I think there are some people that you can be a bit more open to. But I think wherever possible, be as close to who you're supposed to be, 100%. But, there are places where you can have those deep conversations, and maybe other places where probably doesn't quite fit because not everybody's ready in the group to deal with it.
Yeah, definitely that. I think there's certain people in your friendship groups that you'll be more drawn to speak to these certain things. But I do think that's where the candles can help in terms of thinking about your own issues first, and then using that once you know your own answers and you've really thought about your answers, using that to speak up to your network.
Yeah, I think what I like about the whole candle thing is it's although it's got a bit of technology in where you can scan and do stuff afterwards, in its essence is unplugging from the norm.
Yeah.
It's not a social media app that's on your phone, for example, to start off with. It's go and do something physically that's different. So lighting a candle is like, oh, this is a bit weird, which is a good thing. Like when you say go for a walk and you're walking, you're like, well, why am I walking? Actually, it's a good thing.
Yes.
Like going for a walk in the country. But when you first do it, you're like, I don't really want to walk around the country and it's a bit wet. Do you know what I mean? And then you start doing it and you go, oh, I like the peace that comes with it. So I like the fact that you're giving someone an action and a place to unplug, to switch off, to connect into who they really are and be authentic. So for me, where would they find your candle? Where would they find your stuff? Where would they?
So best place is the website, www.bemancandles.co.uk.
Yeah.
And I'm on social media as well. So I do something quite interesting on social media where I'll tell you a story.
Yeah, go.
So since my early to mid 20s, I've written down quotes in a journal or now my phone.
Yeah.
And the reason it's quotes is because I'm dyslexic, so my spelling and grammar's really poor.
Yeah.
So rather than keeping a diary or a journal or something like that, I just write short quotes. And a year ago, I shared these with a friend. And he was scrolling, looking through them, and he said, I need to share these. He said, Ricki, you need to share these. So that's what I do. So on social media, every day, Monday to Friday, 6 a.m., a new quote goes out. so these sort of short
Have
self-reflections.
you got a group that you share that to, like a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group, or is it just open on your social?
So it's just open on social, so anyone can look at that.
Yeah.
But I will say, in terms of the worksheets and everything that's provided with the candle, there is a focus group for that.
Great.
So what people don't realize is that the video, the script, the worksheet, everything gets tested before it gets put out.
Right. Okay.
Because that's really important to me. I want to make sure that it's seen in the right way and it works.
Yeah.
But before it goes out as a product to the public, essentially.
Yeah.
Because with all of these, I speak from experience and tell my own story with it. But it's important that other people can use that to relate as well. So that's why the focus group is there for the candle.
No, it's good that you've got a group of people that you can bounce back and whatever. But I think with the quote stuff, I mean, for me, it's like being able to share those quotes to a community of people just to inspire them and help them. We got a thing called Purpose People. We got a group, a Facebook group, and I'm pretty much every day. Some days I don't, but it's just to give people a sense of encouragement, like just keep doing, keep going, keep heading to where you are. And it's weird, the ones that I share where it's like, keep going, don't give up, that sort of stuff, it gets the most, because everyone's going through their own personal journey, their own personal story. And sometimes it just takes reading, keep going, don't give up, to actually inspire them to keep going and not give up. In terms of I know you're also into poetry.
Is that this morning's post, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you
very up to date.
Yeah, very up to date.
Okay. So I wouldn't say I'm into poetry. I found myself last week sat on my living room floor late at night thinking about the past and certain actions which probably felt that I had to be silent as a man,
Yeah.
And I wrote a poem. And
can you remember it now? I'm putting you on the spot.
I've got it on my phone. Did you want me to?
Yeah.
It's completely up to you. Yeah.
Is your phone off? Is that?
It's on flight mode. I can check.
Yeah, right. Go on.
But I just found myself writing a poem and
just do it. Just share it.
Yeah.
Because I saw it and I thought, I'm gonna have to ask Ricki about it. Go for it.
Yeah, definitely. So I call it my man mask. It's taken years of molding to make my mask. Through my childhood, lessons from generations past. I hear the calls from my teachers clearly. Stand up, man up, don't get teary. I try to toughen up so I'm not picked last, but I laugh with them so the shame doesn't last. My first love left me today. I called my friend for support and to hear him say, you need to bury those feelings and just move on. There's plenty more out there, so just carry on. I'm older now. My childhood's made me strong. I'm silent, resilient. I tackle every problem head on. On the outside, I'm applauded for my work ethic. On the inside, my lack of family time makes me feel pathetic. I do my best to protect and provide, but my struggling finances I'm finding harder to hide. My man mask's been getting heavy in recent years, and when I'm alone, I can't hold back my tears. It's time I make the choice, show weakness and speak up. Find support and pick my mess up. Tell my wife that I've been hurting. Her choice words are kindly reasserting. I've new role models now, and I've questioned my mask. Was this ever mine, or was this generations past? It's time I make the choice, show strength and speak up. Be my own role model, and leave this mask hung up.
Awesome. That's definitely a clip for the reels that we're put out there. But I like the fact that it just talks about masks, and we all wear them. We all got different roles, and sometimes the roles that we are and who we are behind them are completely different. And I think what you're doing with the Beman Candles and having these conversations is to dispel the masks and bring the human out in
Definitely.
people and say, look, this is who I am. Like it or loathe it, this is who I am and I need help, And I think, it's been a real pleasure to have this conversation today. I know people can get in touch with you through the website and follow you on social media. But Ricki, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And thank you for the gift of the candle. So we're going to try it out.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate your time today. So thank you so much. And we'll definitely get you back.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, I've amazing time here. And it's my first podcast. So great experience as well. So
Awesome.
Really grateful.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for being part of the Purpose People podcast. You can follow us on any of the major platforms like Apple, Spotify and Google podcasts, as well as like and subscribe us on YouTube. We really want to help you live life on purpose and live the life that you were born and created to do. One of the things that we do is we're giving you plenty of free tools to actually help you live a life on purpose for purpose. We've got the thing called the Purpose Questionnaire. Now, the Purpose Questionnaire enables you to answer a series of questions that helps you and find where you are on your purpose journey. As a result of that, you'll get a score and you'll get some feedback of how we can take you to your next level of living.